Hello, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I've got you stabilized this time. You're not actually on the table. I'm actually using my tripod. So no more shaking when we're over here. I just didn't realize how bad it was. So sorry about that one video last time we were here. It was really shaky. Today we are going to do the February reading wrap up. I had a month. I shouldn't complain. I did read. I read 12 books. And I really liked the books that I read. They just weren't the books that I thought I was going to end up reading. I don't know how that works. But let's go into the totals. I read 12 books, 1,564 pages, and 74.8 hours. Neither of which of those are entirely accurate. Page count would actually be higher. And because I played the books at a higher speed, the hours is actually shorter. And I actually did the math. It's probably around 55 hours. 58% was audio, which means 42% was print. And I'm really happy with that. 4 books out of the 12, only 4 were middle grade. And that I'm not happy. And that's kind of where I'm upset because that means I did not get to my physical TBR. I read 1 book from my physical TBR. And I need to get 50 of them read this year, and I read 1. 3 were classic and 3 were romance. 2 each of young adult, mystery, literary, historical, fantasy, and 2 DNFs. And those will surprise you. 1 dystopian, 1 LGBTQIA+, 1 that's book and verse, 1 nonfiction, 1 contemporary, 1 graphic novel, and 1 translated. A lot of ones and twos. Like I usually do, I'll do middle grade first, and I'll put timestamps up for the young adult and adult. The very first book I read was a graphic novel, middle grade, Tide Song. In this, Sophie is a young witch, and she's good, but she's not that good. And she likes goofing around with her magic. And she shows the people who don't have magic the stuff that she can do. And she likes that. But her mom, she lives with her mom and her grandmother, and they want her to go to a really good school for witchcraft. And so they send her to live with her great aunt, which happens to be her grandmother's sister. And also staying with the great aunt is a cousin who is also or has been learning magic. So Sophie gets there. She's very nervous about the school and the audition that you have to do. And she wants to find just the right spell to perform to wow everybody at the audition. But the great aunt doesn't seem to be showing her any magic. She's having her do chores. Things like sweep the house, sweep the porch, feed the chickens. And Sophie's getting frustrated. Her cousin, whose name I didn't write down so I don't remember, Sophie's cousin has a textbook that she shares with Sophie, though I don't remember if she gave it to her or if Sophie ends up taking it. The cousin shares some magic with her. Sophie, I think she takes the textbook and goes down to the ocean. She wants to, like I said before, she wants to come up with something to really wow people at the audition. So she's trying something, and what happens is she entangles her magic with a water dragon. Water dragons are beings that they are dragons that live in the water, but they can also transform into human form. When she does this, she entangles her magic with Lear. He becomes a boy, same age as she. He has no memories of why he's there or how to transform back into a water dragon. First, they want to work together to disentangle their magic, because their magic is shown as like ribbons and theirs is completely tied together. But Sophie is a little less interested in disentangling and still really just wants to find something to wow I want to say judges. I have no idea what they are. So she's not really being a very good friend, but she also needs to be really true to herself. I liked it. I didn't love it. I gave it 4 stars, but it's probably only just that. It's more like a 3.9 or a 3.8. The next book I read was Isabel in Bloom. And this is the one that's poetry. It's in verse and is a nice, super quick read. Isabel lives in the Philippines with her grandparents and her 2 best friends and some other family relations that are still there. Her mom has been gone for 5 years in the States working so that she can earn money. She sends gifts and money and medicines back home to the Philippines. I have to get some water. Well, now it's finally time for Isabel to join her mom. The mom is now in San Francisco working and living with relatives. So now Isabel is going to join her mom in San Francisco, and she's going to meet all these cousins, family members, aunts and uncles, cousins that she never knew. She's never met them before. And so it's a little overwhelming. She starts school like right away. She's just really nervous. Obviously, she's really nervous. It's middle school. Her cousins are not teasing her, but kind of teasing her about how thick her accent is. They're like, oh, did we sound like that when we first got here? And all of that. And so she's very self-conscious now. And so on the first day of school, all the kids have to introduce themselves. And so she's very nervous about standing up in front of the class and saying her name and speaking because she thinks she has this big, thick accent. She gets bullied on the first day of school in the lunchroom, which is a little stereotypical. Eventually, she finds this abandoned garden at the school and she has her lunch there. Later, she kind of joins some groups and she's slowly getting some friends. Even though that's kind of settling, like her school life is sort of settling in, she feels like her mom doesn't know her and that she doesn't know her mom. She has a few questions about whether her mom is going to leave her with these relatives. And every time that there's been an event where the mom is supposed to be there, the mom can't make it, like the parent-teacher meeting. So Isabel's upset about that, but it's all because her mom is working. I really liked this, but it wrapped up a little bit too neatly in a nice little bow. Everything was too simple. And I know it's a kid's book, and so I didn't really take anything off for that because I think maybe that was just me. It felt like everything suddenly got better and all was right with the world. But what I did really like, there's an author note at the end where she talks about the different types of poetry that she used. And I'm like, I don't know anything about poetry. I mean, I can identify a haiku, but other than that, I wouldn't know it. I really liked that. And I think this would be a really good book. Like if a classroom were doing a section on poetry, I think this would be a really good book for the class to read because not only is it highlighting Filipino community, but it has poems and apparently a whole bunch of different kinds. I gave it 4 stars. Yeah, I do recommend it. Okay, Harriet the Spy. I wanted to read Harriet the Spy because characters that read books in books. I've always read Harriet the Spy and I never had and I wanted to know. And I am glad that I read it. But Harriet is not a likable character. Now here's the other thing. I said that I read 3 classics. Harriet the Spy is considered a classic too. It was published in 1964, so it is old. It's older than me. I didn't feel like it was a classic. So I did some extensive research once again for you. And I Googled what counts as a classic. My extensive research that I do for you. And it said 50 years old or older. Check. It has that. Relevance. No, I wouldn't say there's any relevance. Maybe I'm wrong on that. If you think there's relevance, I'd like to hear that. Influence. Okay. A lasting impact or influencing other writers. Is it influencing other writers? I would say yes, because characters are still showing up having read the book, which means it's mentioned in a book. Maybe a kid will read the book. Enduring popularity. I don't think it has enduring popularity, and I'll get to that in just a minute. The last one is expresses some artistic quality of life, truth, or beauty. Kind of. Enduring popularity. I would say Harriet the Spy is very dated. She's a rich, spoiled, unlikable character. She is extremely self-centered. There are so many things about it that kids these days would not be able to relate to at all. The other thing I looked up was what are we supposed to get out of reading Harriet the Spy? And it said, teaches the value of honest observation and the necessity of empathy over unfiltered truth. And here's the thing, Harriet's character does not grow. I don't think it has enduring popularity. I do think that this is a book that has not aged well. So anyway, what is it about? Harriet is like 11 or 12. She comes home from school. She has a piece of cake and a glass of milk every day after school because she has a live-in cook and a live-in nanny. And then she changes her clothes and she goes around her community and she spies on people. And she has these set groups of people that she spies on. She writes notes in her notebook. And she is brutally honest about her observation. Now, it is a little bit funny as an adult reading it because there are some things that she's not understanding the context of. She also is writing notes about her classmates and her best friends. She has 2. One day they're playing and her notebook falls out. She doesn't realize it. She goes back to get her notebook and the classmates are reading it and her friends are reading it. And now and I'm not giving anything away because it's all in the description. And now they are all really mad. Harriet, she doesn't really understand understand why they're all mad at her. I am glad that I read it. I gave it a 3.75. It's still a book worth reading. It is interesting enough to just keep going. So I was really glad that I read it. The fourth middle grade book that I read is The Sea in Winter. It is about Maisie and her depression. Now, they never mention that she is depressed, but she is. This is a very sweet book and very well done book about being depressed. Maisie is loved and supported by her family while she's healing from an injury. She's a ballet student and she goes to a special lessons or classes or school with her friends. The three of them are very talented, but she's been separated from them because she's been healing. She had to have surgery. She's been going through physical therapy. It's been months since she's been able to dance. Meanwhile, her friends are still progressing. They're auditioning, potentially going to go to really elite schools, and she's feeling very left out. She doesn't have any friends in her own school because her friends they're from ballet lessons and they don't go to her school. She knows that she's loved and supported. She doesn't think her family understands how helpless she feels. And so there's this long-awaited vacation that they want to go on, and they've been waiting for her to get better, and she keeps telling them that she's better. She's not telling them about these twinges of pain that she's having. Her hopelessness is revealing itself in the way she's snapping at her parents, snapping at her little brother, her impatience with things, and how she's isolating herself. I thought it was a very well done story, very sweet. It's very short, a super quick read. And one other thing that I really liked about it is they are indigenous, so we hear some stories and some history, and I really appreciated that. And that is The Sea in Winter, and I gave that 4 stars also. Okay, I only read 2 young adult. That's not entirely true. I did start one and I DNF'd it. So let me do that one first. I started Don't Let the Forest In. I was listening to it. I had the physical book and was kind of doing a tandem read, or mostly audio. I just couldn't stand how the audiobook was because it was trying so hard to be gothic. It just felt like it was trying too hard to me. And I know that I have a minority opinion. I know that this book is people's best book of the year in 2025. It just didn't sit with me. I barely made it. I think I made it to 26%, 27, something like that. I could tell that whatever was going to happen was about to happen, but I just wasn't interested enough to keep going. So what is it about? There's a brother and sister. They're twins, and there's another boy. It's the first day moving back into the boarding school. The boys have a special relationship. One's a writer, one's an illustrator. The one that's an illustrator has discovered that what he draws comes to life. And I didn't get that far in the book. I had just gotten to the point, I think, where they're kind of reconnecting and they're beginning to tell each other what's up or something. Something like that. It wasn't for me. And I went into it without high expectations, which is usually my issue, but it's fine. I read That's Not My Name. That was the one that when I did my TBR video that I was kind of mildly freaking out about. If I think about the situation, it still kind of gets to me. And I think that's probably from being a parent. That's Not My Name is very much a beginner level thriller. It did not give me the ka-thunk heartbeats at all, like 0. It's a dual POV. It starts off with her point of view. She's picked up by the police along the road, takes her in, it's middle of the night, very rural area. She's explaining to the cops that she doesn't know who she is. And when a man comes in and he's like, I need help, my daughter is missing. My teenage daughter is missing. This guy has on his phone pictures of her. When they go back to his place, he has birth certificates, he has school ID, he has all this stuff. They have no choice. And the girl, she's like, okay, I don't really remember you, but I'm willing to go with you and we'll try and make this work. And the cop says, I'll come back and check on you. The other point of view is Drew. Drew is the boyfriend who is the number 1 suspect in the disappearance of Lola. We hear from Drew because he knows he didn't do anything wrong, does blame himself for her disappearance. And so he feels like he's the only one doing anything to try and find her. So he prints out flyers and puts her picture everywhere he can think of. The sheriff is only looking at Drew. And at first I didn't really like his point of view. About probably halfway I was very into this book. I don't even remember stopping. I know I worked on the Valentine's Day puzzle. Could not put this down. I did not want to put this down. Really enjoyed it. Flew through it. I gave it 4 stars. I gave a lot of 4 stars this month. The other young adult book I read is Good Girl, Bad Blood, which is book 2 in the trilogy of Good Girl's Guide to Murder. If you've read the first one and it's been a while and you're worried about having to reread it in order to pick up the second one, don't worry. There is an extensive recap, even possibly too much, because I remembered the story. I remembered how it ended. I remembered some of the little things that happened, but I didn't remember people's names. And it's all covered in the first few chapters. And again, possibly even too much. Well, in book 1, Pip, as a senior project, is going to solve a murder that happened in her small town, because the guy that's blamed for the murder, she liked him. They were friends, and she doesn't believe that he did it. So she wants to solve the murder. In the second book, she's dealing with the fallout of having done that project. So I don't want to say too much, but she has put out a podcast of all the episodes and the interviews, and she is now hugely popular. When a friend's brother goes missing, the friend comes to her and says, "Hey, will you help me find my brother?" And she's like, "No, but because I am popular, I have all these people who are following me, I can put his picture out, make it known," but it keeps going. Again, I listened to this one just like I did the first one. The audio production is so good. So good. It has 11 different narrators. I devoured this. I absolutely devoured it. 4 1/4. I cannot wait to start the third one. Sorry if you can see and hear my cough drop, but spring has sprung and my allergies are beginning to get to me. Plus, I have been doing a lot of talking today. But now it's time for the adult books, and I had quite the variety. I read Every Day I Read, which is a non-fiction and translated. It's written by the author of Welcome to the Hunamdong Bookshop. It's just essays on why we read. What do we expect to get out of it? Should we read fiction? Should we read non-fiction? All those kinds of topics. I actually started it in January. I wanted to take it slow. I wanted to really enjoy each chapter. So I was only reading 1 or 2 chapters a day. Also, in each chapter, the author puts in a quote from one of her favorite books. In the very beginning, either they weren't strong quotes or they just didn't. I felt like because I hadn't read the book, I didn't get anything out of the quotes, but that's just sort of how I felt in the beginning. I did eventually get more out of each one. I really enjoyed this book. Potentially, it might be my favorite book of the month. I gave it 4 1/4, but I could possibly bump that up. I had tabs all throughout the library book, so I had to take them all out. It was thoroughly enjoyable. I really do recommend it. Every Day I Read, which is true. I do try to, anyway, read every day. Violet Thistlethwaite is not a villain anymore. I am, I think, a cozy fantasy girl. I really enjoyed this. Guy Shadowfade is the bad guy. He dies on the first page, or is already dead on the first page, something like that. The Thorn Witch, who has been his right-hand person, is realizing that she could be somebody else now. She could have a different life. She doesn't have to be evil anymore. She could be good. Violet settles into the town of Dragon's Rest, which is actually fairly near the castle, Shadowfade's castle. She's renting a room and space in the greenhouse from the apothecary. It's a brother and sister who run the apothecary. I don't remember what the sister's name is, but the brother is Nathaniel. They are grumpy and sunshine. He is very upset. He doesn't like having to rent out a room. He doesn't like having to share his greenhouse. But really, it kind of stems from the fact that his business is failing and he never wanted to be an apothecary anyway. But his sister is all sunshine and Violet is all sunshine. And soon Violet, she starts connecting with the town members and the people at the farmer's market, and she's making friends. She wants to own a flower shop. The town people are just charmed and impressed by her. They really like her and they welcomed her into their community. He's just not having any of it, but yet at the same time, he kind of can't stop thinking about her, and it's just super cute. I really liked it except for the spice. The spice in this was completely unneeded, and it would have been a higher book. It probably would have been a 4.5 for me because, again, I think I am just a truly a cozy fantasy person, but I gave it 4 stars because, again, it had spice and it didn't need to. It's just there for no reason whatsoever. Pretty much the opposite kind of book. I read an autobiography of an ex-colored man. It's written by James Weldon Johnson in 1912. What I really like about this, James Weldon Johnson initially published this anonymously because he wanted people to think that it really was an autobiography, but it is actually fiction. And I love that. In 1912, that's what he did. It's a very simple, straightforward narrative. Nobody has names. He's a man that can pass for white. He plays ragtime music on the piano. I can't remember what any of the descriptions of people, but it could be like the red-haired lady or the cigar man, the tall guy, or those are the only names, the only types of names. And we are following this man. It starts off with him in childhood, and this is where he learned how to play piano. And then we follow him as he gets older, and he's going to go off to college in Atlanta, but then he ends up going to New York, and he's hanging out with different friends. People discover how good he is on the piano. There's also this restaurant that he goes to, and there's situations there, and it's all I did this, I did that, he said this, and then we did that, and then we went over here, and then I did this. Like I said, it's a very straightforward narrative. I was enthralled. I love that era anyway, 1912. Yeah, I was just really into this. It has interesting discussions on race because he would have these conversations with just black people. He would have these conversations with just white people who thought he was white, and then in mixed groups, and it was just really interesting. I gave this 4.5. I really enjoyed this. I loved it. Oh, and then right after that, I did Wuthering Heights. Now, I normally would try to, I don't know what it is about Wuthering Heights, but I do remember the story. I won't say that, but I don't remember any names, and I don't remember who's who and what's what and where's where. If you want to hear me talk about it, I do have a video and I'll put a card up. If you're going to read it, I do recommend either listening to my review of it or get a family tree. Like I Googled a family tree of Wuthering Heights, and that helped. That really helped for me to know who was who. The hardest part is the relations. I still don't think I'm going to watch the movie. I am glad that I read it though. I really am glad that I read it. So Wuthering Heights, I gave a 3.5. Secret Lives of Country Gentlemen. This would have been a 5-star read. It's an romance, but it's still straight up Regency, and I love Regency. And this would have been a 5-star except for the spice. It starts off, is mostly in Gareth's point of view. He has been raised by his uncle. His father left him at his uncle's. The uncle's not been very nice to him, but has raised him, and now he works for the uncle. So he kind of has abandonment issues. He seeks comfort in a Molly house. Now, a Molly house is where men would go to be with men. And he has made a friend in this man that he calls Kent, because Kent is from Kent. And Kent calls him London because they haven't given each other their real names. They've been kind of regulars for a while. Tells him on this particular night that he's going to be gone for a few weeks and he would like to know what London's real name is and what his address is so that he could write to him and let him know when he comes back. Gareth takes this to be another sign of being abandoned, and he kind of lashes out at Kent. And so they part not amicably. Well, within a few days from that, Gareth's father dies. And so Gareth now has to go to this remote little village. He's now the baronet. He now has a half-sister and his father's wife and this town that is full of smuggling. When Gareth worked for his uncle was a lawyer. So Gareth is very much by the law and order. This is how it's supposed to be. So when he learns about this smuggling, and the family that runs the smuggling is the Doomsday family. So that's why, I forget the name of the series, but it's Doomsday is in the name of the series. It's either something Doomsday something. And that's because the smuggling is run by the Doomsday family, and the family is a very large family in this small town called Romney Marsh. And Gareth is like not having anything to do with this smuggling. This is wrong. It's completely wrong. They don't call it smuggling. They call it free trading. The head of the Doomsday family is Josiah. Everybody just calls him Joss. Well, Joss is Kent. They become friends. They learn to listen to each other, to understand that one has this issue, and you don't have to agree, but you can at least try to understand their point of view, the responsibilities and the listening to each other, and what I need and what you need. The third act breakup that always happens was, I think, really well done. I actually bought the whole situation. I just thought it was extremely well done. I won't continue on with the series because I'm not necessarily interested in anybody in the Doomsday family. I thought it was really good. It would have been 5 stars except for the spice. I gave it 4 because it was spicy. All right, 1.5 books to talk about. I listened to Sky Full of Elephants. I loved the premise. I heard about this last year and wanted to read it. Basically, what I knew about it was that one day all the white people decided to go into a body of water and drown themselves. The rest of the world has to deal with suddenly a world that doesn't have any white people. I just didn't buy the result. There was no government, that there was no military. I just didn't buy a lot of that. So what is it about? We start off with a man, I don't remember what his name is. He's a teacher. He's just finished teaching a class, I think. He gets a phone call from his daughter. Now, he's never met his daughter. He was actually in jail until all of this happened. He was in jail. So he's never met his daughter. But his daughter is somebody who could pass for white. And he gets a phone call from her. She's in her house. She's been raised by her mother, who was white, and by, it sounds like, a racist father who was white, and has raised them racist. She needs the help of her biological father because she wants to go to Alabama because she's heard that there's a colony there of white people that are still alive, and she wants to go join to be with her people. Well, what's funny about Alabama is no longer part of the United States because they have a king and a queen. So I got about 50%, I think, 52%. So I got to where they're in Alabama and things started to get a little too spiritual. I didn't buy some of the situations that they had mentioned and some of the stuff that was going on. So I was just sort of done. What I shouldn't have done was gone from Sky Full of Elephants to Station 11, which was also kind of a dystopian and had some similar things going on. But I did really like Station 11. Now Station 11, I also, literally at 50%, I was ready to DNF. But I had just DNF'd Sky Full of Elephants and I didn't want to do it, so I gave it till a little bit longer and then something finally started happening. But even again, like around 60%, I was like, this is a little boring. And I was ready to DNF again. Station 11. We start off with this man who is a famous actor and he's performing King Lear on stage, clearly having a medical emergency, and he dies on stage. And there's a man in the audience who is studying to be a paramedic. He jumps up on stage and tries to resuscitate. There's also a kid on stage, and so she saw the whole thing. He's kind of trying to keep her separated and trying to find out her parents or who's in charge of her to take care of her. And then he walks home. While he's walking home, he gets a phone call from one of his friends who's a doctor. And the doctor is saying, hey, have you heard about this? The Georgia flu. Have you heard about this Georgia flu? It's really bad. It's time for you to you need to take this one seriously. So that's all kind of our current timeline. And then we go to 20 years in the future and we meet it's a troupe of performers, Traveling Symphony, and they perform Shakespearean plays. They've tried other kinds of plays, but people like Shakespeare, and they do musical performances also. And they're always armed because you just never know what you're going to come across when you're traveling from town to town. There were a lot of people in this troupe. So that was kind of a lot of names. It was a big name dump. You would go back and forth. So this is very much multiple timelines, a couple different POVs. Several different POVs. It can get really confusing. Now, I think, but don't quote me on this, I think that the post-pandemic, the 20 years in the future, is a linear timeline. Though I feel like there was some mention, but it might be somebody thinking about the past. So I think it's a linear timeline. But the past, or current time-ish, that one bounces around. It's well done in the sense that things get revealed at the right time, and that's why it's not linear. But if you don't like that whole bouncing, this is not the book for you. I did really like this. It was hard to keep track of who was who, and so I didn't have the physical book at all, so I was listening to it, mostly doing this puzzle, this big giant one, I was constantly backing it up to say, wait a minute, who is this? When is this? What area is this supposed to be in? And that kind of thing. So it was a little bit difficult to follow along, but not too bad. Normally I play my books, my audiobooks at about a 1.4 or 1.5. This one I did in more of about a 1.25, just so that I could really focus on what was happening. There were times that I was like, wait a minute, no. There were enough little things that made me just don't do Sky Full of Elephants in Station 11 back to back. Just trust me on that one. So I gave it a 3.75 just because at 50% I shouldn't want a DNF. One thing that I did really like, and this is again probably too much information, but it had a Star Trek quote that they referred to several times, because survival is insufficient. I really liked that, and I appreciate a good Star Trek quote. And that is the end of this very long video, and if you're still here, I really and truly appreciate it. Thank you for hanging out with me. I'll see you next time. Bye.